The chamber was vast enough to hold an atmosphere of its own. Transparent walls curved into a sphere of light and shadow, the endless swirl of the planet Nemeris below casting reflections that moved across the assembly like tides. Delegates from 100 worlds floated in their suspension seats, shimmering in their tailored grav fields, their languages translated into a soft murmur that filled the air. At the center of it all stood Kira Vance, Terran envoy, voice of a species still considered too young, too earnest, too polite to matter. Her posture was composed, her eyes steady, her voice soft yet deliberate. On behalf of the United Terran Assembly, she said, we thank the Council for its continued cooperation in the matters of interstellar stability. The words were measured, ritualistic, as much armor as diplomacy. Kira had learned long ago that words could shield better than steel. The Council, in turn, regarded her as a kind of novelty, an emissary from a species still burdened by courtesy, still naive enough to believe kindness had value in the galactic theater. She had grown used to the condescension. Used to the snickers that followed her closing remarks, the amused glances exchanged between reptilian eyes and crystalline pupils. But what the Council did not see, what they could not see, was the hum beneath her pulse, the echo of distant engines, the synchronized rhythm of orbital platforms aligning far beyond the edge of this shining world. Humanity, after all, had been listening. Watching. Preparing. A tendril of blue vapor rose from the air vents beside her, a sign that the Eltari representative had taken the floor. Its gelatinous body shifted within its containment sphere, voice translated into tones that rippled through the chamber. The Terrans, it said, continue to request access to the Perseus Gate despite their limited record of discipline. Might we remind them that civilization requires more than the capacity to wage war and smile about it afterward? Laughter rolled through the room like static. Kira inclined her head slightly. The United Terran Assembly appreciates your concern, she replied evenly. Discipline, after all, is a matter of perspective. We simply prefer ours tempered by reason. The Dralke Prime Minister, a towering form of segmented armor and luminous eyes, leaned forward in his pod. Reason? You mistake submission for reason, Ambassador Vance. Your people hide behind pleasantries because you fear what open conflict would reveal about you. You are soft. Your entire culture reeks of hesitation. There it was, the same accusation, voiced once again, as if repetition could make it truth. Kira felt the heat rise beneath her collar but showed nothing. On the surface, she smiled. Inside, a part of her counted the seconds, the pattern of silence between breaths, the rhythm of her heartbeat matching the pulse of the fleet signal buried deep within her implant. The Council thought Earth's representatives were unarmed, unmodified. They were wrong. Every Terran envoy carried a link to the network, an encrypted lattice of thought and memory that stretched from Sol to the outer colonies. Kira's calm wasn't submission. It was calibration. The Terran species, she said softly, has endured much worse than laughter, Prime Minister. You might consider that before assuming we are afraid. Her voice did not rise. It did not need to. The hall quieted, the translators hesitating as if uncertain how to interpret the edge that had entered her tone. Across the chamber, the Andari ambassador, a being of mirrored skin and whispering light, tilted its head. Perhaps, it said carefully, we underestimate the humans. Their patience is formidable. The Dralke exhaled through his breathing plates, a sound like grinding stone. Patience is just the delay before weakness. The silence that followed was thick enough to alter gravity. Kira folded her hands. For years, she had trained herself to smile through moments like this. Humanity's entire diplomatic doctrine rested on restraint, on being the steady hand in a room full of claws and fangs. But lately, that restraint had begun to taste like rust. She had seen the reports from the outer colonies, human ships harassed, settlements taxed by alien tariffs, ambassadors ignored. The Council's laws always bent away from Earth, never toward it. She exhaled slowly, imagining the orbit above Nemeris. Somewhere far beyond the Council chamber's glass dome, the Terran escort fleet hung in silence, invisible to the public eye. Thousands of ships under blackout protocols, their reactors dormant, their sensors listening. Each one waited for a signal no one had ever heard issued before. She wondered if they could feel her heartbeat. The Eltari shifted again, its voice now mock-sweet. "Ambassador, perhaps your people might take lessons from the Zorai collective. They learned humility early. It is not too late for yours to do the same." Humility. A word the council liked to use when describing obedience. Kira smiled again, small and deliberate. "We are, in fact, quite humble. We know exactly how much we're capable of." A flicker passed through the council's central display, a glitch, brief but noticeable. Lines of data scrolled and then vanished. Most ignored it, assuming interference from the nearby quantum relays. Kira did not. That flicker meant someone had pinged her uplink, a single coded pulse from Terran Command, confirming orbital readiness. Her throat tightened, not in fear but in something older. Anticipation. The meeting adjourned. Delegates began their slow drift from the chamber, their assistants orbiting them in graceful patterns of color and movement. Kira remained for a moment longer, watching the curved walls fade from gold to blue as the artificial day cycle ended. Her reflection stared back at her from the glass, composed, expressionless, unreadable. Outside, the fleets turned ever so slightly. Humanity, patient and smiling, continued to endure. For now. The corridors of the United Terran Assembly headquarters were quiet, a deliberate calm that belied the activity humming through the orbital network. Kira Vance moved through them with her usual grace, her uniform perfectly pressed, the insignia of Earth's fleets glinting faintly against the artificial light. Around her, holographic displays projected schematics of distant sectors, fleet movements, and the encrypted channels that fed every Terran command node across the system. For decades, this network had lain dormant in the eyes of the galaxy, silent, invisible, unthreatening. Today, it pulsed like a living thing. Kira's steps echoed softly as she entered the command chamber, a vast room that floated within the station's gravity well. The officers stationed there, human and AI in synchronized cooperation, turned briefly as she passed. Their faces held no trace of the tension they felt inside. They never did. Humanity had long learned that fear, like anger, was best concealed behind control. On the central display, a three-dimensional map of the Nemeris sector rotated slowly, marking the orbits of thousands of Terran ships hidden behind stealth fields, their positions shifting with calculated precision. "Report," she said, her voice carrying the calm authority of someone who had lived through the mockery of countless council sessions. Lieutenant Commander Eric Holt stepped forward, a wiry man whose eyes always flickered toward the data before speaking. "All units report nominal, Ambassador. The Atlas battle group is online, and the outer patrols have completed recalibration. No anomalies detected. All encrypted comms links are stable. Operational readiness is at 98%, factoring in orbital drift." Kira nodded, absorbing the cadence of his words. 98%. Just enough to maintain absolute stealth while sending an unmistakable signal to those who knew how to interpret it. The Council had never imagined that polite humans could command such precision, that restraint could carry the weight of fleets. "Any word from the outer colonies?" she asked. "Minor skirmishes," Holt replied. "Nothing that requires engagement. The Council's proxies continue their harassment, unaware of the adjustments we've made. In fact," he hesitated, glancing at the holographic map, "there is an uptick in observation traffic near the Perseus Gate. It seems the Dralke and Zorai factions are beginning to take notice." Kira allowed herself a slight smile, the first in hours. Let them notice. Awareness is the first step toward comprehension, and comprehension is far more dangerous than ignorance. Holt's gaze flickered to her, recognition in his eyes. "Understood, Ambassador. The fleets will maintain course. Any trigger will be synchronized with your authorization. Protocol remains intact." She walked toward the main observation window, a sweeping arc of transparent alloy that overlooked the station's docking bays and the void beyond. Stars glittered cold and indifferent, their distant light a reminder of the scale of the galaxy. Among those stars, Terran ships lay in hiding, invisible but ready to respond with unmatched efficiency. For years, the Council had mocked humanity's civility, misinterpreting patience for weakness. Soon, the galaxy would learn the truth. A soft chime alerted her to a secure incoming transmission. The holographic interface projected a series of coded signals from Earth, each pulse confirming synchronization with the fleets hidden in distant orbits. Kira studied them, her mind tracing the patterns, verifying the connections, noting the timing down to microseconds. Every ship, every system, every tactical node was in place. All that remained was the slightest signal, a whisper through the network. That would alert the fleet to shift silently, imperceptibly, into a posture the galaxy had never anticipated from the humans. "Prepare the delegation," she said finally, turning back to Holt. "We leave for the council session in 1 hour. Ensure that all communications are routed through our quantum firewall. Nothing leaves this station without authorization." "Yes, Ambassador," he said, bowing slightly before returning to his console. Kira allowed herself a moment alone. She closed her eyes, recalling the laughter from the last council session, the way the Drauke Prime Minister had leaned back in his pod, armor glinting under the chamber lights, voice dripping with scorn. Soft. Hesitant. Afraid. How little they understood. The smile she had worn that day had been genuine, yes, but also carefully calibrated. It had hidden calculation, patience, and a depth of planning the galaxy could not yet measure. A faint vibration rippled through the station. The subtle alignment of distant ships, the micro-adjustments of orbital thrusters, imperceptible to any species without Terran-grade sensors, sent data back through the encrypted network. Every calculation matched. Every fleet segment was exactly where it should be, ready to move as one, silent as the vacuum surrounding them. Kira traced her finger along the holographic map, watching lines of light converge and realign, the hidden dance of humanity's silent force. "Ambassador," a voice called, breaking her concentration. It was Lieutenant Saran, a communications officer who rarely spoke unless necessary. "Council convocation in 30 minutes. Delegates are arriving. Security confirms no interference." "Very well," she replied. Her eyes lingered on the distant shimmer of starlight reflected in the viewport. Humanity had endured for centuries under the weight of ridicule, insults, and calculated disregard. Every colony that had been taxed unfairly, every ambassador dismissed, every slight catalogued in memory and in code, had brought them to this moment. Politeness had been their strategy. Restraint had been their weapon. Kira adjusted her uniform and strode toward the airlock that would carry her to the council transport. As she moved, the station's AI murmured quietly, reporting the final status of each orbital vessel. All systems were green. All nodes aligned. Humanity's patience, once mistaken for weakness, was poised to become undeniable force. And the galaxy, still laughing, still blind to the depth of their calculation, had no idea what it was about to witness. The council chamber shimmered with layers of refracted light as Kira Vance entered, her movements measured, each step a study in controlled composure. The delegates hovered in their grav seats, an assembly of species whose forms defied description, crystalline limbs, gaseous appendages, segmented carapaces, all gathered under one dome, the heart of galactic governance. For years, she had walked these halls under their scrutiny, enduring whispers, jokes, and outright mockery. Today, though, something had shifted. The faintest tremor of awareness ran through the delegates, a barely perceptible sense that Earth's patience might finally have a breaking point. Kira took her place at the central podium. Her voice carried, smooth and calm, yet resonant in a way that seemed to make the light itself pause. "Esteemed council members," she began, "we return to discuss the deployment of the Perseus Gate corridors. The United Terran Assembly appreciates your attention and guidance as always. A ripple of laughter came from the Dralke Prime Minister, his segmented armor reflecting the chamber's brilliance. "Guidance?" he asked, the word dripping with derision. "You mean interference? Your species pretends to follow protocol, but in reality, you stagger along like children trying to mimic us." Kira's smile remained intact. Her words were polite, her tone unshaken. "We find that collaboration often yields better results than admonishment. Perhaps one day your species will see that cooperation is more effective than condescension." Murmurs passed among the delegates, a mixture of amusement and curiosity. Yet in the outer orbit, the Terran fleet responded with a subtle alignment shift. Thousands of vessels, hidden from standard scanners, rotated imperceptibly around Nemeris and its moons, each movement calibrated to avoid detection yet synchronized across light minutes of space. Every microsecond of shift was tracked by artificial intelligence nodes embedded within every vessel, their sensors recording and transmitting back to Kira's implant in real time. The Andari representative, a being of refractive light, tilted its head, emitting a sound that translated roughly as intrigue. "Your people have never displayed such coordination before. Are you exaggerating your capabilities, Terran?" Kira's voice softened, as if revealing a secret only the Council itself was too arrogant to understand. "We do not exaggerate. Our coordination has been cultivated over centuries of necessity. We prefer patience, but we are capable of far more." From the rear of the chamber, the Eltari delegate shimmered with irritation. "Centuries of patience? Or centuries of hiding? You claim strength without showing it. Tell us, Ambassador, what will prevent your fleets from acting rashly?" Kira inclined her head slightly. "Our restraint is deliberate. Our fleets act only under specific authorization and within parameters we have long established. Rash action is not our nature. Calculated precision is." The room fell quiet, translators struggling to render the subtle emphasis in her words. Even the Dralke paused, a grinding exhalation of disbelief escaping its breathing plates. For the first time, the Council sensed that humanity's polite demeanor was more than decorum, it was a controlled measure of restraint, and that restraint now had edges. Far above, orbital sensors picked up the Council's own fleets adjusting unconsciously to Terran maneuvers. Small anomalies in trajectory and speed went unnoticed by those without access to hyper-accurate subspace analytics. Kira observed the readings, noting with satisfaction that every Council monitor, every probe, every relay that had once mocked humanity's inability to project influence beyond diplomacy was now quietly signaling its own vulnerability. The Dralke, undeterred, leaned forward, a threat in its segmented articulation. "Your patience will fail. It always does. A species this soft cannot withstand the pressures of galactic politics." Kira allowed herself a micro-adjustment of expression, imperceptible, but noted by the Terran command nodes as a deviation in micromuscle patterns. "Patience does not fail," she said softly. "It simply chooses when to end." A ripple of tension passed through the chamber. Delegates exchanged silent communications, their bodies shifting in slight, instinctive caution. They had watched humans endure insult and dismissal, but none had ever seen the first sign that humanity's politeness might be a shield instead of a leash. At the same time, distant probes in the Perseus Gate corridor registered an unexplainable pattern, thousands of minute subspace echoes moving in harmony, not aggressive but unmistakably coordinated. Analysts in remote systems, far from Terran command, tried to interpret the signals. They concluded errors, anomalies, or natural phenomena. They were wrong. Every pulse, every shift was a message. Humanity was rehearsing, not for war, but for presence, for acknowledgement, for the galaxy to finally understand that civility was chosen, not imposed. Kira continued her measured address. "The United Terran Assembly seeks only mutual benefit. We do not wish conflict. We prefer understanding. Yet we cannot allow condescension to dictate our place among the stars." Her words were calm, her tone unflinching, but the effect rippled beyond the chamber. Across the galaxy, hidden sensors began picking up unusual gravitational microfluctuations, subtle, precise. Not enough to alarm most species, yet enough for those attuned to understand. Humanity had prepared for every insult, every slight, every underestimate. And now, the first echoes of silent influence were moving across the systems, imperceptible to the Council but undeniable in their intent. Kira stepped back, her hands folded. The session continued, Council members resuming their petty arguments and accusations, unaware of the quiet alignment of invisible fleets. Humanity had not yet struck. No word had been sent, no weapon deployed. All that had happened was observation, calculation, and preparation. And yet, for the first time in centuries, the Council felt the shift, not a declaration, not a threat, but a presence. The polite human smile had begun to falter, and with it, the illusion of weakness. The corridors of the Nemeris orbital station pulsed with quiet energy as Kira Vance returned from the Council session. The delegates had dismissed her words with familiar arrogance, unaware that every syllable she spoke was a marker in a long chain of preparation. Beyond the station's reinforced hull, humanity's fleets had shifted imperceptibly in their orbits. Thousands of ships, their hulls blackened to avoid detection, moved like shadows around planets, moons, and abandoned asteroids. Sensors recorded each micro-adjustment, feeding back data into the Terran neural grid, which Kira monitored through a subtle interface embedded in her temple. Every vector was perfect, every trajectory precise. Lieutenant Commander Holt approached, his expression betraying the faintest edge of excitement he rarely allowed himself in the presence of superiors. Ambassador, all fleets are reporting nominal alignment. The outer colonies confirm the hidden arrays are operating at full capacity. Even the Council's most advanced subspace probes have detected nothing anomalous. Kira nodded, her thoughts tracing the patterns that would soon be visible across the Perseus Gate sectors. Excellent. Ensure all non-essential signals remain masked. We do not seek confrontation, only presence. The galaxy must understand restraint before it understands force. Holt paused, aware of the weight behind her words. Understood. Protocol remains unchanged until your command. As she walked toward the observation deck, the station's artificial lights shifted to a softer hue, simulating the dawn of Nemeris Prime. The viewports revealed the blackness beyond, dotted with glimmering points of light, some distant stars, others the tiny signatures of Terran craft blending seamlessly into the void. Kira's mind flicked through the encrypted channels of communication, the schedules, and the subspace pings that ensured each vessel moved in silent coordination. Every ship was a node, every pilot an extension of a collective calculation. Humanity's patience had not been idle, it had been deliberate. Back in the Council chamber, whispers had begun to circulate among the delegates. Analysts replayed footage of the previous session, examining every nuance in Kira's speech, every subtle inflection, every controlled gesture. The Dralke Prime Minister had insisted on mocking the humans as usual, but cracks in his armor of confidence were beginning to show. For the first time, some delegates questioned whether the species they had considered meek might, in fact, possess hidden depth. Kira's eyes scanned the viewport as a notification flickered on her interface. Minor skirmishes along the Lothar belt had ceased without human intervention. Drones recorded the withdrawal of Council-aligned raiders, a pattern traced not by force, but by the subtle realignment of Terran orbital patrols. Presence alone had dictated behavior. The galaxy had never learned to respect patience, only to mistake it for weakness. Humanity, however, had always known the truth: restraint could be the most formidable weapon of all. The Andari representative, a prism of shifting light, had observed the same invisible movements. In Council communications, fragments of their reports hinted at unease. Their fleets are not deploying, one transmission noted. Yet our sensors detect subtle gravimetric shifts. They act without acting. The description circulated among analysts like an unspoken warning, though none could yet interpret its full meaning. Kira allowed herself a brief moment of satisfaction before turning to Lieutenant Saran, who monitored the real-time data feeds. Cross-check orbital vectors with the hidden kinetic arrays. Ensure all decoys are in place, and the countermeasures for subspace distortion remain calibrated. If any Council intelligence probes attempt intrusion, we must appear unaffected while maintaining control. Saran's fingers danced across the holographic console, confirming each parameter. All systems stable. The arrays are synchronized to the central network. Any anomaly will trigger immediate compensatory adjustments. The Council will remain unaware. Beyond the station, humanity's silent presence continued to expand. Long-range sensors noted gravitational microfluctuations around contested sectors. Outposts once considered insignificant now hosted active Terran surveillance, their operations undetectable except to the trained eye. These moves were not aggressive, they were deliberate, a quiet reshaping of influence without a single shot fired. Humanity was demonstrating control, precision, and strategic patience simultaneously, a combination the galaxy had never seen in one species. Kira stepped toward the docking bay, where transport pods waited to carry her back to the Council convocation. Each pod was a node in a secure communication lattice, transmitting encrypted signals that confirmed the continued readiness of hidden fleets. She boarded, the hum of the pod's engines a faint vibration beneath her feet, and activated the quantum shielding that would render her passage undetectable by all but Terran sensors. As the pod detached from the station, Kira reflected on the lessons that had brought humanity here. Every insult endured, every dismissal, every act of condescension had been recorded, analyzed, and integrated into a system designed not for retaliation, but for demonstration. The galaxy had long assumed civility was synonymous with weakness. Humanity had turned that assumption into a tool, one that would soon reshape interstellar politics forever. The pod merged with the Council transport corridor, a silent thread moving through the fabric of space. Kira's gaze lingered on the stars, knowing that beyond their distant glow, fleets waited in perfect alignment, unseen, unheard, and ready. When the Council finally realized the magnitude of humanity's preparation, it would be too late to mistake patience for powerlessness. Today, restraint was not merely policy, it was presence, and it was absolute. The Council chamber was alive with the usual chaos, voices overlapping in a chorus of accusations, complaints, and posturing. Delegates from 100 systems floated in their grav seats, shimmering and shifting, their alien forms undulating with impatience. Yet through it all, Kira Vance moved with the calm precision of someone who had rehearsed centuries of interactions in her mind, each gesture measured, each word polished. She entered and paused at the podium, letting the room settle, the subtle vibrations of anticipation rippling through the air. Esteemed members, she began, her voice perfectly modulated, carrying clarity without threat. We convene once more to discuss the Perseus Gate corridors. The United Terran Assembly remains committed to collaboration, understanding, and shared prosperity. The Dralke Prime Minister leaned forward, segmented armor creaking, a predatory gleam in its eyes. Collaboration, it growled, the sound vibrating through the translation matrix. You speak of collaboration while your fleets hover in secrecy, your colonies expand unnoticed. You are deceitful, Terran. Always deceitful. Kira's smile remained intact, but behind it, a network of calculations activated. The fleet was in motion, not outwardly aggressive, not violent, but shifting silently into new alignments around critical sectors. Thousands of vessels adjusted microgravity vectors and subspace fields, creating a lattice of precision movement imperceptible to the Council's sensors. Each ship's propulsion hum was tuned to cancel out detection across the entire sector, the pulse of the network resonating with the collective thought of Terran command. She gestured lightly, as if emphasizing a point in conversation. Deceit implies ill intent. Our intention is transparency, though perhaps misunderstood. We seek only to maintain equilibrium while ensuring the safety and prosperity of all colonies under Terran stewardship. Murmurs rippled through the chamber, translated and retransmitted across countless networks. Analysts replayed her movements, parsing tone and inflection, searching for the edge they had been blind to for centuries. The Andari representative, a prism of refractive light, tilted its head, voice soft yet laden with curiosity. Their alignment, subtle, imperceptible. Yet everywhere, it seems, the humans leave traces of presence. Coordinated, not aggressive, yet undeniable. The Dralk exhaled, a grinding rasp that echoed across the hall. Presence without declaration is meaningless. You bluff. That is all. Kira inclined her head slightly, her voice dropping just a fraction, enough that the sensors embedded in her neural implant captured a subharmonic frequency only detectable by Terran observers. Perhaps, she said softly, presence without understanding is meaningless. That, however, is not our mistake. Across the sector, the hidden fleets responded to the micro-command. Ships in orbit around Nemeris adjusted in perfect silence, forming geometries designed to optimize both defense and observational capacity. Recon drones projected false energy signatures to mislead any prying sensors, while deep space arrays masked the true scale of human influence. No one outside the Terran network could detect it, but the Council's spies were now unwittingly cataloging the movements of a force far larger than they had ever imagined. The Eltari delegate shimmered, irritation cracking through the smooth layers of its form. Ambassador Vance, do you expect us to believe your fleets move without your command? That your people simply coordinate invisibly? Such claims are preposterous. Kira allowed a small, deliberate smile. We do not expect belief. We expect observation. And observation is no longer required, it is happening in real time. At that moment, hidden sensors in the Council's own orbitals detected subtle gravimetric anomalies. Fleets appearing and disappearing, orbits shifting without explanation, microdistortions in subspace fields. Panic flickered briefly among the analysts, though they interpreted the readings as system errors, natural anomalies. Yet within the Terran command, every pulse confirmed exact alignment. Humanity had rehearsed this for decades. Every insult, every dismissal, every act of condescension catalogued, studied, and integrated into a quiet strategy of presence and deterrence. Kira's tone remained calm as she addressed the chamber again. The United Terran Assembly values civility. We have endured centuries of misunderstanding and condescension, always choosing patience over provocation. But patience is not weakness, and civility does not imply submission. The chamber shifted. Delegates who had once laughed at Terran civility now exchanged uneasy glances. Subtle reports began reaching them, fleet positions realigning, patrol drones appearing in sectors once thought clear, data anomalies too coordinated to dismiss. The realization that humanity's restraint had been deliberate, not naive, began to take root. Kira stepped back from the podium, letting silence carry the weight of her presence. The room strained against it, trying to fill the void with chatter, but the unease was palpable. Her hands remained folded, her expression unyielding, her voice a calm anchor amidst a sea of uncertainty. Outside, in the void beyond the station, the Terran fleets had completed their silent maneuvers. Thousands of vessels were in perfect alignment, invisible to the galaxy, yet positioned to observe, to deter, and if necessary, to act. No signal had been fired, no warning issued. Humanity's statement was made not through aggression, but through the undeniable proof of preparation and coordination. The Council, still arguing over protocol and petty grievances, remained unaware that history had shifted quietly around them. Humanity's smile had not vanished. It had sharpened, becoming both shield and signal. Patience had reached its limit, and the galaxy, in that moment, began to sense the gravity of the species it had so long underestimated. The chamber was silent when Kira Vance returned for the final convocation. The delegates floated in their grav seats, colors dimmed, forms taut with unease. The hum of their conversation had been replaced by cautious whispers, analyzed in real time by the translation grids. Even the Dralk Prime Minister, once so brash and certain, now remained rigid, segmented plates gleaming under the overhead lights as if reflecting the weight of unspoken realization. Humanity had endured mockery, scorn, and ridicule, but now patience had become a visible, almost tangible presence. The galaxy could feel it, even if it did not yet fully understand it. Kira took her place at the podium, her calm voice carrying easily across the hall. "Esteemed members of the Galactic Council," she began, "we have convened many times, discussing corridors, trade, and alliances. For decades, humanity has listened, endured, and acted with the civility our species values. That civility has been mistaken for weakness. Let there be no doubt, it is restraint. And restraint, when tested, has its own power." A flicker passed across the room as Council sensors attempted to reconcile the subtle shifts in Terran fleets now fully visible through hyperanalysis. Ships once invisible moved into clear, synchronized formations around critical trade hubs and strategic points in the Perseus Gate corridor. Every vessel mirrored the precise movements of another, forming patterns that were both defensive and imposing, a lattice of silent control that could, if needed, dominate without a single shot fired. The Andari representative tilted its prism-like head. "This presence. It is unprecedented. Never have we observed coordination on such a scale executed without declaration or aggression." Kira's eyes swept across the chamber, observing the reactions of every delegate. "Coordination alone is not our message. Observation is not our purpose. Humanity seeks coexistence, guided by respect and understanding. But we will not endure insult under the guise of diplomacy. We will not allow mockery to dictate the terms of our civilization's survival." The Dralke Prime Minister exhaled through its breathing plates, the sound almost hesitant. "You speak of survival as if it were choice. We see, your fleets, your colonies. But no engagement has occurred. Are you bluffing, Terran?" Kira's smile remained, composed yet firm. "This is not bluff. It is demonstration. We have not struck because our patience allowed reason to prevail. We strike only to defend, never to intimidate without cause. But the message is clear, civility is deliberate. Restraint is conscious. And it is not weakness." Across the galaxy, analysts struggle to reconcile the data pouring from Terran observation nodes. Trade routes once dominated by Council factions shifted subtly as hidden patrols enforced neutrality without interference. Minor civilizations, long oppressed by the elder races, sought contact with Earth, recognizing in humanity a force both protective and impartial. Each subspace ping, each gravitational microadjustment, broadcast a lesson the galaxy had ignored for centuries: patience could be stronger than aggression. The Eltari delegate shimmered with a faint aura of respect, something rare in their kind. "Your people have prepared for every insult, every slight, every underestimation. And yet you acted only when the time was appropriate. This is remarkable." Kira inclined her head. "We have always been prepared. Humanity understands that diplomacy is as much about timing as it is about words. Our restraint has allowed the galaxy to act freely. Our patience has taught observation. And now, the galaxy has witnessed both." A subtle vibration ran through the chamber as the final alignments of the Terran fleet completed. Ships moved into the last positions, forming patterns that could protect entire systems from unseen threats, yet without overtly threatening any. The Council could see, finally, the scale of humanity's preparation, and the calculated care that had gone into every maneuver. "Let there be clarity," Kira said, her voice calm but resolute. "Earth does not seek war. We do not seek dominance. We do not seek submission. We seek equality. Mutual respect. Recognition that civility does not mean weakness, and restraint does not mean incapacity. Today, the galaxy has seen what patience looks like when wielded deliberately, and it is our hope that future interactions will honor understanding over arrogance." The chamber remained silent, not from fear, but from comprehension. Slowly, the Dralke Prime Minister straightened, a gesture almost ceremonial. Even the most skeptical delegates could no longer deny the magnitude of what had been demonstrated. Humanity's civility had been a shield, its patience a strategy, and now, at last, the galaxy had seen the depth behind the calm, the strength behind the smile. Kira stepped back from the podium, letting the silence and presence of hidden fleets speak for themselves. The accord was unspoken yet undeniable. Earth would be treated as an equal, not for its threats, but for its wisdom and restraint. The minor skirmishes ceased. Trade realigned peacefully. Alliances formed with unexpected speed. Every move in the Perseus Gate sector confirmed that the galaxy had learned its lesson. Civility is a choice, and patience, when practiced with precision, can be more powerful than fleets of warships. As Kira returned to the observation deck of her station, she watched the stars outside shimmer cold and distant. Humanity had endured centuries of mockery, yet had emerged not merely unscathed, but respected and understood. The fleets remained hidden, their presence a quiet assurance rather than a provocation. Every insult catalogued, every slight remembered, had been transformed into strategy, and every gesture of patience had become proof of calculated mastery. She allowed herself a rare smile, one not measured for diplomacy but for herself, for the species she represented. The galaxy had witnessed humanity's restraint, and in doing so, it had been taught a new truth: the polite hand of Earth had never been empty, and the human smile had never been without teeth. The quiet of space returned, serene yet charged. Humanity's place among the stars was no longer in doubt. The galaxy had learned its lesson, not through fire, but through the patient, precise, and unyielding presence of a civilization that had long understood the value of restraint. And in that understanding, peace was not fragile, it was absolute.